Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fintech Times. We're here at day 2 of Money 2020 Europe in Amsterdam, and I'm very happy to say that now I'm joined by Andrew Moseley, the Principal Solutions Consultant for ACI Worldwide. Andrew, how are you?
Great, thanks Tyler. Pleasure to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about the MPA.
Well, thank you.
So, at ACI, my role, Principal Solutions Consultant, so I work within the European team, predominantly on the banking intermediary side. Very much focused around real-time payments across, obviously, Europe, UK, which we'll talk about the MPA, but also I spent a number of years in Australia, so working on their real-time payments implementation a few years ago. So, yeah, great to be here, thank you.
Yeah, I bet the markets of Australia and the UK must be very different. So.
Yeah, I mean, Australia, it's interesting. Australia is very forward from a payments perspective, but they were behind from a real-time payments perspective. So
really?
They had the advantage of when they launched their scheme, which is called the New Payments Platform, it was ISO 20022 messaging from the outset, which is what they're looking to do in the UK with MPA.
Oh, wonderful,
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we're here to talk about the UK's payment architecture, and it's a very hot topic here at Money 2020.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be talking about it. Why do you think the arrival of new payments architecture is necessary in the UK?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So going back to faster payments, so the current scheme is Faster Payments Service, FPS, launched 2008, very successful. But I guess it's almost a victim of its own success in terms of the timeline, because it's been around for 14 years. It was based on a very old messaging standard, ISO 8583, 1987. So you can see, very, very dated. It doesn't have the ability to handle, I guess, the data and the richness of data that is needed today from a payments perspective. So very successful. I think last year was well over 2 billion transactions annually. From ACI's perspective, we've been involved with faster payments since launch in 2008. We also provide a managed service, and currently we're processing over 50% of the total volume. So we're very closely aligned with what is now called Pay.UK, and really looking forward to MPA being stood up and really transforming and re-energising, the payments infrastructure, retail payments infrastructure in the UK.
Yeah, well, it'll be a breath of fresh air for the payments infrastructure. It'll be really interesting to see it come into fruition. I mean, how will this work in a regulatory sense, especially in regards to ISO 20022?
Yeah, so Pay.UK are the organisation that obviously currently run faster payments as well as BACS and cheque clearing. So they've been given the task of standing up this new payments architecture, ISO 20022. They obviously are regulated by the PSR in the UK. So their job is really to procure the central infrastructure, which is a big thing. So there's no sort of transition. Faster payments, it's the old scheme. MPA will replace it, and eventually faster payments will be decommissioned. So from a regulatory perspective, they're working to a timeline. We're hoping that procurement should be completed, shortly. It's running a little bit behind schedule, but I believe Pay.UK are getting quite close, because that central infrastructure needs to be built, and then the participants that will, existing faster payments participants that will transition over to MPA have to obviously begin their sort of certification testing and group testing, which is due to start probably Q2 next year. So it's a very aggressive timeline, but can't wait for it to actually become reality.
It'll be very exciting to see it come in. I mean, you described it as sort of a very aggressive timeline, like a very sort of to the book sort of timeline. What can new entrants to the market expect of this new architecture, and what challenges do you think that they might encounter when they do meet it?
Yeah, I think one of the key objectives of MPA, as it is for any real-time payment scheme that we've been involved in globally, whether it's Australia or Singapore or Malaysia, wherever, for Europe with RT1 and TIPS, is really trying to make it easier for new entrants to access the payments ecosystem, MPA in the UK. I think in reality, there's over 40 current participants or direct participants with faster payments. The timeline as it stands today, now this may change, subject to change by Pay.UK, but the timeline is, I think, mid-2024 will be the transition period through to the end of 2025 when faster payments will be decommissioned. So I suspect in the first instance the focus will be much on existing faster payments transitioning to MPA. So maybe a little while before new entrants can actually get certification slots to basically onboard themselves onto NPA. But I think once NPA is live and running, it will really speed things up, because I know it's a challenge currently getting new entrants onboarding onto faster payments. We work with a number of customers. Like I say, we provide our solution, what we call on-premise, so they run it themselves, they run our software themselves, or we provide a hosted managed service in our private cloud for a number of banks that actually want us to provide the connectivity into faster payments. So we'll do the same for NPA.
That's really, really interesting that you speak about the challenges that they're going to come across. I mean, one of the major themes throughout Money 2020 here today is this sort of journey to digital, and how people can embrace digital to make their businesses and their customers' lives better. But I'm just wondering, from that sort of viewpoint on the digital transformation journey, what do you think NPA will have in store for that?
Well, it's whilst it's regulated, it very aligns very much with a lot of the companies that I talk to, whether they're existing customers or potential customers of ACI, and I'm sure this is the same for all organisations that provide these sort of real-time payment solutions. It's very much a trigger. They're all on digital transformation journeys. Some are more advanced than others. They know it's a big challenge to basically move from old legacy messaging to new message, ISO 20022. So I think to actually move from old to new, it's really sort of a like for like, but as I mentioned earlier, with the ISO 20022, with the richness of the data that you can carry for that messaging from a digital perspective, with mobile banking and apps through API connectivity, it will really open up, the payment ecosystem in terms of what you can actually do with those payments, person-to-person payments, person-to-business payments, everything. So it's a really exciting time. I know the people at Pay.UK are doing a fantastic job, and industry and Pay.UK are working very closely together, as are companies like ACI that provide solutions. And I think we're all on the same page. We're all driving to the same goal and objective. Obviously we've got to sort of manage the challenges and make sure it's done in a secure and risk-free way.
Absolutely, and I think you've painted a very vivid picture of NPA and how it's sort of going to come into fruition and what that could mean. But if we, and I'm sure it's going to have its benefits, but if we flip the question on its head, is there anywhere that you see right now where NPA is ineffective? And if so, what do you think how can we mitigate this?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I mean, again, from our experience, and probably a good point to mention, so we actually publish annually, and we're on our third edition, a report, a real-time payments report, which is called Prime Time for Real Time, and we basically analyse 53 separate geographies, countries, look at where they've come from, where they're at in terms of real time, in terms of the growth, what they're doing, what they will be doing. We also analysed 30 geographies from an economic perspective. So we've got that sort of experience and insights into other markets who have been through this journey already, either like in Australia, they went straight to ISO 2022, or indeed other countries, Peru, for example, that are moving from ISO 8583 to ISO 2022, just as the UK. I think right now, I think one of the key, I wouldn't say ineffective, that's probably not the right word. I mentioned the challenge around the timeline. Procurement process has been a little bit slow. But I think once that's in place, it will kick on. As long as they manage that transition, they've already, from the initial scope of NPA, which was to replace faster payments and BACS, the clearing, ACH clearing, that the ACH side has been sort of de-scoped. So it's really like for like, priority payments, same-day payments, the standing orders that you get with faster payments. The ACH, in terms of like bulk payments, bulk same-day payments, will come in at some point. So I think the benefits we're getting from moving from these separate clearing streams to this new architecture with a new message standard will be a little bit longer than was originally planned, but I think it's the right thing to do, because you've got to get everyone on board and moving in the same direction. Whilst there will be organisations that do things a little bit quicker than others, that's fine. So yeah, I wouldn't say ineffective, it's just get the infrastructure in place, get everyone connected, and then in terms of the digital overlays, everything you can do on top of that message standard, that's going to be such an exciting time in the next 5, 10, 15 years going forwards.
Especially when you're introducing these new measures, there's always going to be some sort of level of friction, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I think you've really sort of emphasised that and really brought that to light in this conversation. My final question for you, Andrew, is there anything that's surprised you about being at Money 2020 this year?
I've never been to Money 2020 Europe. I have actually been to Money 2020 in Singapore, because obviously I worked for ACI in Sydney for a number of years. So, no, I found it very similar to what happened in the APAC region, but it's been really exciting. I mean, it's a really good mix of, banks, sort of fintechs, startups. I mean, probably the most interesting is just walking around talking to companies who are really smaller, but very agile, very dynamic. And that's being sort of mirrored, and sort of the large organisations are doing the same. So I think it's a fantastic event. I really, really enjoyed it. And ACI, we've been here pretty much from the outset, both in APAC and Europe. So excited to be a part of this great event.
Well, brilliant. Andrew Moseley, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tyler. Pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much.